Hello, welcome once again to Everyday HDR. Today I'm going to show you a little bit about Tiffen Dfx 3.0. I recently did a review on this and would like to show you why Tiffen Dfx 3.0 is absolutely awesome. You may know Tiffen for their filters that you screw right onto the lens of your camera, but what you may not know about Tiffen is that they've got this awesome filter program that is either a standalone program or built right into Adobe Photoshop. So I want to show you a little bit about what makes this thing work and why it's so good. So as you can see here, I've got a picture of my son. He's a pretty cute little boy, but the difficulty with babies is that getting your lighting set up has to be perfect, and if it's not, well, you got to do something. You can see he's kind of a little bit blown out in the face on this picture. So let's see what Tiffen can do for us. Now, if you have the Adobe Photoshop plugin, you're going to go to Filter, scroll right down to Tiffen, and then open Tiffen Dfx 3. And as you can see, I've been working on this image. I've been playing around with some of the filters. That's the cool thing about Tiffen, is that it remembers that, and it brings in your most recent settings. So if you process this in Tiffen, after you've put all your filters in, and then you get into Photoshop and you start doing a little bit more post-processing, and then you realize, oh man, it would be really awesome if I could go back into Tiffen and do one more thing. It's going to keep all of the progress that you did previously, which is pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and delete these layers so we can start over fresh and new. So let's start this off first by adding a little bit of noise reduction. We're going to go to Image, and we're going to go to D-Block. There's D-Block, there's D-Noise, and there's D-Band. I prefer D-Block, and I know that for my preferred settings I prefer D-Block 2. And you can take a look at how your image is being processed with the preview items up here. You can preview it side by side, so that the left one is your filter that you're applying now, and your right one is the original. Or you can use these sliders and move back and forth and see just what is happening as you go back and forth. You can see how the filter that you're using at the time is affecting the image. So I usually go with D-Block 2. It's a nice subtle noise reduction. It doesn't blow out the details too much in the image, and it still does a great job of reducing that noise. So now, after you've done one filter, you're going to go up here and you're going to add another one. Say Add Layer. So just like Photoshop, when you press Ctrl-J, you've now duplicated your layer. So for this, I'm going to add a little bit of soft focus, or soft contrast actually, to this image. So let me go to soft contrast is under HFX diffusion. And what that's done is it's given me this nice clean facial tone instead of the blown out highlights that I had before. I've now got a nice clean facial tone over there, and I like that, so I'm going to go ahead and stay with that. So now let's say I want to darken up that background, because my lights were a little too powerful obviously, but this was one of those spur of the moment things where I had to get this shot of my son. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the layer, and now I want to mask it. So Tiffen Dfx has built in an awesome mask feature. So you're going to click on the current layer that you're working on. You're going to click on Add Mask right here. And I'm going to use Easy Mask. I think this is the best mask that they have in here. There's a couple other ones that are pretty cool. You can go to Selection. You can see that it makes a selection of a mask, but I prefer the Easy Mask. So now with Easy Mask, when you have the highlight on the person with the pencil up here, this icon right here, everywhere you draw, it's going to keep that area. So let's say I want to keep all of this stuff, which is my son, but I want to black out the background. So I'm going to draw little lines around where he is, and then black out everything else in the background. So I'm going to switch over to the pen tool that's outside the figure, and this is going to subtract everything that I don't have highlighted in green. And you can just paint right along with it, and you can always adjust this later. So now all I have to do is go up to this and say Generate Mask, and it's generating my mask. And you can see over here I've got a pretty decent mask of my son right now. Now everywhere you see like these little fuzzies, you can just go ahead and add a little bit more red to that area. I see that's going to need some right here, and maybe right here, and generate mask one more time. So now any filter that I apply to this is going to go directly to him. So we can test that out by doing that. If you want to get those squiggly lines off, just go ahead and click on the actual layer and not the mask that's on the layer. So I want this to be the background. So I masked out my sun. It was easiest to mask out my sun because I know exactly what I wanted to be there. So I'm going to click on this, and right here you see invert mask. Click that, and now everything that's going on in the mask is going to happen in the background. And that's a little too high contrast background for me. So let me see what I can do with these contrast backgrounds. I'm not really feeling that. So, but that's the great thing about this Tiffen Dfx is that there's hundreds of filters in here. I'm going to go with the HFX grads and tints and see what kind of tints I can get out of this. So you can see all these little thumbnails down here show you exactly what's going to happen with your background. If you want to go with something, you know, crazy, autumny, there you go, sunset, twilight. But I want to go more with like a, let's go with an ND grad. So we got this gradation that's happening now from the foreground to the background. And let's go with like an ND9. Let's make it 6. I like that. It's not too much in the back. It's just right for me. So now let's say I want to do a little bit more with what's going on with the foreground figure. I can go ahead and duplicate this layer again, and instead of having to remask this and having to try and match up the mask perfectly, you can just click on your mask, drag it straight up to the current layer. And again, you can invert that mask. So now I need to invert that mask to go to the foreground figure. So again, just invert that mask, and now any filter that I apply is going to go straight to the figure in the foreground. And there are some awesome stuff on here. I could just go through all day long and just pick out filters and just see what's going to happen with my pictures as I go through. And a lot of them are very similar to what you would see in their glass filters, like an ND grad, where you've got the gradation filter so that you can get, you know, the landscape photos, but it works well for backgrounds too. And you can add more light. You can really bring in more light to the subject, and you can see what's going on here by moving back and forth, seeing what all I've done to this so far, and how you can see it's already done a lot of work for the photo. So one thing I really want to show you before I close out is it's just a fun thing called the gobo. And a gobo in photography is basically what's a go-between. It's something that is in between your lights and the subject that you're shooting. So they have a bunch of gobos built into DFX, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the layer again and add this mask because I want the gobo to happen on the background. So now they have all these go-betweens, gobos. I can put a window light in the background. I can put, if this was a Christmas photo, I could put a reindeer in the background, as if that were my go-between when I was on the set. Some of them were kind of, you know, just fun to play with, not necessarily stuff that I would put on my work, but they're cool. Lots of stuff to play with. Let's see these ice halos. This is pretty interesting looking. Let me put this right over top of his head. Bing. Ah, look at that. Okay. So, let's just go ahead and press OK on this one. Even though I think that's kind of weird with the little things coming out of his head. But you see, it's fun to play with. But you can also get some really professional work out of it as well. When you're done, you click on the little gear up here, and it processes your image. Usually it renders faster than this. I must have too many programs running. Maybe it's the ice halos. Maybe ice halos take a little bit longer than a window. Oh, there it goes. I see progress. I first was introduced to Tiffen Dfx at Photoshop World, and I was absolutely amazed by how quickly they were getting masks and just how well they were putting out these products, these filters. It was intense. So, the ice halos may not be a great touch, but you can see just the kind of work that you can get out of Tiffen. So I hope that helps maybe sway your opinion into purchasing Tiffen Dfx. It's an awesome program. Google Tiffen Dfx 3.0 and it should take you right there to their website. Hope this tutorial helped you. Take care.